Hi, I'm here with Congressman Jim McGovern. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be with you.
Wanted to talk a little bit about housing, the need which I sense is desperate for new housing developments for seniors, for low income, and for disabled populations. And that gets talked about a lot, but nobody actually seems to be doing that, at least not in Central Mass. And particularly which is a good thing that we invite people from Afghanistan and now the Ukraine to settle here, but we don't have enough housing for the existing population, particularly those three groups. What's going on to address that? And because to me that seems to be a housing authority via the federal government and state government funding to address that problem. What's going on with that?
Well, first of all, you're correct. It is a big problem, not just here, but all around the country. And here in central Massachusetts, we've seen a 10% growth in our population. So the demand is even greater because of that. People want to live in this area. That's a good thing.
Right.
And so at every level, housing is a challenge. And you know, the way to remedy that is obviously produce more housing, right? I mean,
right.
And you know, but you know, trying to find a location that you know meets all the zoning requirements and that the local officials think is an appropriate place to put it, and all the other stuff sometimes is a little bit of a challenge. But in terms of funding, you know, the federal government, you know, we just passed this omnibus appropriation bill that actually increases the amount of federal assistance to promote affordable housing, you know, and provides additional resources to cities and towns, again, to be able to have some flexibility in terms of how they spend it, dedicated to housing. You know, I also you know, I'm moving legislation forward to pass additional funding to help grandparents who are raising their grandchildren, which is, you know, becoming more and more a reality.
Sure.
And oftentimes they're living in housing for 55 and older, or, you know, senior housing, and then all of a sudden they've got these kids. You know, finding something they can afford is often a challenge, and so we're trying to get some more money into that. President Biden in his Build Back Better bill, which passed the House, unfortunately it's stalled in the Senate. We're going to try to have to pare it down, but in that bill is $150 billion which is the largest investment in affordable housing in our nation history. You know, that would help, obviously, if we get that. But it's resources, and then it's siting, so I think on the federal level we're trying to provide more resources. The state also has a role in this, but it is a big problem. You know, you mentioned these housing authorities. There's lists a mile long.
Yes, I mean it's a 10-year wait in some places,
right, which is, you know, which is insane. And so, but you know, there needs to be more of an investment. And again, I'm hopeful that by the end of the year, some form of this Build Back Better plan will pass. It may not be $150 billion that will go toward this, but my hope is it will be a substantial increase over the status quo.
Sure.
And that will help.
I think that's a good step. I guess part of me says we almost need to make it mandatory that cities and towns use this for those kinds of housing, because I do see, for instance, in Worcester, I see lots of old mill complexes and other complexes being turned into housing, and there's always this, and certain percentage is going to be affordable housing, and then you look at what that affordable housing rent is per month.
Right.
It's not affordable. It's not affordable.
Right. Yeah. Well,
so
and look, you know, something we can all celebrate is the fact that a lot is happening here in central Massachusetts. A lot is happening in Worcester.
Sure.
And this has become a more desirable place to live. As a result, housing prices are going up.
Right.
And so, you know, what you would have been able to, you know, to get, you know, even adjusted for, you know, current, you know, to the current day economy, you know, for more, 10 years ago, for a more reasonable rent, for example, today it's much, much more expensive because in Worcester, people want to live downtown. They want to live next to, you know, Polar Park. They want to be able to, walk to the Worcester Public Market or wherever.
Sure.
And so, but we have to make sure that we're not pricing people out of the area. People who were born here, raised here, spent their entire lives here. If they want to stay here, they ought to be able to stay here, and they ought not to have to go broke in order to stay here.
And there's just too many people, to me, and not just in Worcester. I pick on Worcester sometimes because I see all these developments, and those are sites that could be used also for housing authorities to build, but the other communities too around. There's got to be some way. There are too many people living in cars. There are too many people, because of the organizations that I'm involved with, like St. Paul's Elder Outreach. We see this all the time.
Right.
People who are desperate, and
Right.
there's nothing that's been done over the last 10 years, or very little to me that has been done over the last 10 years to address it. So maybe
the
President Biden's...
The city manager of Worcester is actually, looking at possibilities with some of these old factory buildings. Some stuff is in the works. More will be. And I also want to say, when we talk about affordable housing, just so people understand this, we're not talking about people who, are homeless, right? We're talking about people who are working,
right,
maybe working at City Hall
low
in Worcester,
income and just struggling.
Right. They can't afford any of the rents. So,
That's right.
again, people ought to be able to live where they want to live and not have to go broke doing it, or make difficult choices to move way, way away from where their job is.
Right.
Not everybody has a car.
That's right.
And public transportation is not reliable, in some of our towns. So,
Sure. Yeah.
So this is, you are correct. This is a big problem. On the federal level, what we need to do is provide the resources to the states and to the local governments to be able to help, move forward on a plan for housing at every level, but also for affordable housing.
Sure. Well, let's hope that President Biden's piece of that bill at least gets.
I'm hoping.
All righty. All right. Well, thank you very much for spending some time talking about. It's my pet issue this year is housing, because I see so many people who are desperate. Housing for people in those categories. So I appreciate your coming and talking with us about that.
Happy to be with you.
Great. Thank you. And we'll be right back.